Police in Sweden are trying to establish the motive behind the deadliest mass shooting in the country's history. The Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson, said many questions remained unanswered. At least 10 people were killed at an adult education college in the city of Orebro on Tuesday. The gunman was among the dead. The motive for the violence is unclear, with police saying they think the attacker acted alone. Graham Satchell reports.
Late into the night, police were still at the school in Sweden as they investigate how and why so many here lost their lives. This footage shown on Swedish television appears to show the attacker making his way through the building, although we haven't been able to verify it. Whoever took these pictures is clearly terrified and runs for their life. This resident nearby was filming on her phone when the attack started. Inside the building, students took refuge under their desks. The shooting started at lunchtime at an education centre for adult learners. Police were on the scene within minutes, but it took some hours before the building was made secure and students could be escorted away safely.
A guy next to me was shot in the shoulder. He was bleeding a lot. When I looked behind me, I saw 3 people on the floor bleeding. Everyone was shocked. They said, "Get out, get out."
As word began to spread that something horrific was happening, parents tried desperately to keep in touch with their loved ones.
We texted each other for over 2.5 hours, and she came to school 5 minutes before the whole thing and has been very scared. She saw blood, and the teachers were good at helping them, bringing them in and locking the door.
Police have said they don't believe this attack is terror-related and that the shooter, who's believed to be among the dead, acted alone. Sweden has one of the highest rates of gun crime in the European Union, blamed largely on gang rivalry. At a local church, families have been gathering, waiting for news. The dead have not yet been identified.
Of course, people are very upset what has happened here, and people who lives here and go to school at Risbergska. So we try to help them to communicate with their relatives and give them support.
Sweden is now coming to terms with what the Prime Minister here has described as the worst mass shooting in its history. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
And let's just show you these live pictures coming into us from Orebro. That looks like a police press conference that's about to start. And this, of course, is an update on that shooting that happened, the deadliest in Sweden's history. Let's cross live to our correspondent, Nick Beek, who's there in Orebro for us. So, Nick, a day later, what do we know about what happened during this attack?
Well, Catherine, there's still a lot of information we don't know, so it would be very interesting to see whether the police are able to fill in some of the gaps and give more critical information. I mean, the basics that we have at the moment is that they don't believe this was terror-related. They don't believe the perpetrator was in a gang. He didn't appear to have a criminal record. He was not known to them. And it seems that he was acting alone. So where does that leave us? Hard to say. In terms of this location, it's a big campus. There are lots of different schools here. The one that was targeted was an adult learning centre, so people over the age of 20 who typically come here for their classes. Has to be said, a lot of people here were new arrivals, or they'd been in Sweden only a short or moderate amount of time. They'd come from different countries. They were immigrants, often learning Swedish, but we don't know at the moment whether this was a central part of the gunman's thinking.
And Nick, incredibly sad stories emerging about those who were caught up in the attack.
That's right. I mean, at the moment, Catherine, we don't have the names, the faces, the stories of any of the people who've been killed here, who were murdered. 10 victims, we're told, at least. The gunman also said to be dead. So we haven't really got a sense of whether this was a targeted attack or whether the people who were killed found themselves simply in the wrong place at the wrong time as this gunman opened fire yesterday lunchtime. So lots for the police to go on. Swedish media are reporting that the gunman was a 35-year-old local man described as a recluse who'd lost contact with his family, and that he did have a gun licence. That is all unconfirmed for now, but certainly a few different news outlets are reporting that. We'll have to see whether the police give any more concrete information about him and the victims when they give this update.
And Nick, just to remind those who are watching that right on our screens we can see the live images there from Orebro where you are, and this is the police press conference updating the nation on this deadly attack. Nick, just remind us some of those key bits of information that people are looking out for from the police at the moment.
Yes, well, at the moment, Catherine, we have the details such as this attack unfolded at lunchtime yesterday. A lot of pupils had apparently gone home because there was a national exam that had taken place, and once that had finished, a lot of people had gone, but clearly others remained. In terms of what we don't know whether it's students or staff who were killed and indeed injured as part of this attack. We know it's the deadliest school shooting in Swedish history. This simply, they haven't seen anything like this before. The Prime Minister was saying that it was an abhorrent attack, a brutal attack, and one that simply should not have happened. So I think inevitably there will be in the days to come questions about gun laws in Sweden. They are strict. People need to apply, and there are checks if they're given a license to have a gun. I mean, within this country, a lot of people use them for hunting, particularly in the rural areas. So there are those who have guns, who have weapons. Worth stressing, we don't know what weapon was used in this particular attack. So that might be the sort of information that comes to light in the next hour or so.
And Nick, just remind us about some of the violence that we've seen there in Sweden over recent years and other shootings that have taken place.
Yes, Sweden is a country where violence has been a growing problem. And this has been linked mainly to gangs in the big cities, including the capital, Stockholm. We've seen an increase in shootings, the extent to which Sweden's actually, by the metrics available, the highest country anywhere in the European Union. So of the 27 EU countries, Sweden is right at the top for the rate of gun crime. And of course, that is alarming. The Prime Minister said just last week that his government was losing the battle against a surge of violence. And he was talking about gangs in particular in urban areas. Worth stressing that what we've seen in the last month or so is a real spiralling of bombing attacks. So this is different gangs using weapons to target each other, often tit for tat. These explosions, it averaged about one a day in January, so in the first month of this year.